And also, I hate to say it, but like, the Timeless Child is going to be, it's going to be erased from canon. We're now past the point where Doctor Who being passable is enough. Last week felt rapturous because we've been lacking in basic characterisation, story structure, and even cinematography and production design for several years. The score and the title sequence was probably the only thing that didn't blow me away last week, because those were just about the only things that weren't rock bottom beforehand. But now that the Star Beast is out of the way, now that we've returned to some sense of competency, of normality, it's time to up the game. What can RTD2 really achieve? What sort of highs can we expect from the newly reteamed Doctor and Donna? Last week I said that going for nostalgia bait during the 60th wouldn't be as good as giving us the next Midnight or the next Heaven Sent. What I meant by that was a new instant classic episode of Doctor Who. What that didn't mean was something pretty derivative of those stories. I enjoyed Wild Blue Yonder, but I think calling for it to be heralded as some of the very best Who has to offer is very premature. It's fine with some intriguing monsters, awesome moments, and engaging acting, but I don't believe it reaches the highs of my favourite New Who stories. In that regard, in spite of it being another genuinely good Who episode for the first time in years, I do find myself a little disappointed. I like the no things and they're a cool concept, but they really begin to unravel if you pay more than 2 seconds thought to them. This episode felt small to me, but not in the way that those other self-contained Who horrors did. I like that we got an Exorcist spider walk and some genuinely creepy moments, but I felt like the tension was consistently undercut by goofiness and jokes. Doctor Who always brings the camp, but in episodes like Midnight and Heaven Sent, it knows when to put the humour on hold. I've watched both of those stories recently, and in spite of being years and years old, I think they hold up much better than this ever will. Something that is becoming apparent to me is that these specials don't really feel all that, well, special. Where Day of the Doctor felt like a true event, a huge turning point in the Doctor's life, this feels more like a series reduced to 3 episodes. I said last week's special felt like a series opener, and this week it felt like it could be a random episode towards the tail end of a season. I don't think that's inherently bad, but I do wonder why a story like this wasn't saved for Ncuti Gatwa's Doctor next year. It feels like a really good episode in a strong series, rather than a momentous special in an anniversary milestone. Day of the Doctor doesn't feel momentous because of all the Doctor cameos, it feels epic because the 3 principal Doctors come together and make a huge life-changing decision. So I'm not saying that I'm disappointed in this story because Peter Capaldi or Matt Smith didn't show up. I liked some of the character beats between the Doctor and Donna, and again, it's light years ahead of the undercooked material we've had for years, but that doesn't necessarily mean it sings. I don't think the lamentations on this iconic pairing is worth the price of admission. A 2-hander episode set on a generic spaceship that feels like the budget saver for last week's drone shootout and next week's American guest star. I think the heart of my problem is full team. Again, you look at Day of the Doctor, the late great John Hurt is only around for 1 hour and 15 minutes, screen time wise even less so. We never saw the character on screen again, and yet he made a huge impact. I think it felt right to get such a Doctor so briefly, because his whole appearance was structured in a finite manner. We met him at the end of his regeneration, at the cusp of a huge decision, and his arc felt really satisfying. I thought the 14th Doctor was going to be the same. I thought he was going to be questioning the reason for this face, and perhaps he would even be given a singular driving force, a mission that would be leading to his rightful end as a brief but important stage in the Doctor's life. Perhaps had the entire trilogy of specials centred around the Toymaker and Donna, this feeling would have been conjured. Instead, it feels just like such a shame that we're only heating up the oven and then we're going to have to say goodbye. It feels a little rushed. It doesn't help that he's literally the 14th Doctor. I think it's odd to give a brief Doctor a number designation. War and Fugitive work as outlier Doctors in that sense because they don't have a number. Back in my 14th Doctor video, I speculated that he would have been called the Something Doctor, akin to the War Doctor, leaving 14 for Ncuti. Now that it's playing out, I firmly think that should have been the case. Imagine if John Hurt's War Doctor had been given a companion and an opener and then a self-contained story like this before being whisked away. I think it would have felt incomplete and not nearly as satisfying as what we got. That being said, maybe next week will really tie everything together, but with an hour to go and a villain as reality shattering as the Toymaker being squeezed into just one story, I'm dubious. I'm starting to wish these specials played out like a classic RTD 3-parter, rather than 3 separate, solid, if not perfect episodes. Now before you go throwing eggs and tomatoes at me, I want to say there were some great bits of direction and editing here. The use of doubles as the monsters this week led to some really well executed angles and moments, and the reveal that the Doctor and Donna weren't talking to each other in that first intercutting scene was masterful. It all came to a head in an exciting way, and I love that the Doctor actually chose the wrong Donna. Watching the Know Things Mr. Fantastic their bodies in different ways was super unique for the show. I especially liked their elongated arms and the not Doctor's gaping jaw. I could have dropped to my knees seeing Wilfred Mott one last time. I'm just so happy that in the context of the series, he got to see not only the Doctor again, but Donna with all of her memories. Sadly, Russell has confirmed that Wilf will not be in the next episode, as Bernard Cribbins passed away before they could film his scenes in The Giggle. But it was nice to see him, and yeah, really affecting moment. One of many people's favourite companions and characters in the show ever, and Bernard Cribbins was an absolute national treasure. May he rest in peace. Now, of course, let's talk about the thing I actually hated. You knew this was coming.
All 4 of us know it's Gallifrey.
Except it's not.
What do you mean?
Cut! You don't know where you're from.
They mentions the bloody timeless child. Why the fuck did they do that? They also mentioned the flux, but I don't really know or care what the significance is of that because I stopped watching for the 3rd Chibbers season. A decision that saved me a lot of hurt if the Sea Devils and Centenary Eps was anything to go by, because they really, really stank. Anyway, whilst I applaud trying to use the timeless child and the flux in a more characterful way, similarly to how RTD used the Time War to propel Nine's guilt, I just cannot and will not vibe with this storyline. It's funny that RTD is trying to make fetch happen with this one, because he himself ignored the whole half-human on my mother's side thing, clearly because he didn't like it. So he is capable of doing that, he clearly just doesn't want to in this iteration. I had hoped he'd do the same for the timeless child, but no luck here. Maybe he felt like ignoring it would be banishing Chibnall's work, but then again, you did have his Doctor regenerate into your own in a largely unprecedented move with the most popular Doctor of the modern age, so I think it's a bit late for that now, Russell. Just please, 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 I beg you, don't mention it again. I don't want Shooty to pick up the timeless child in any way, shape or form. Donna didn't confirm it, she just said the Doctor didn't know for sure. Let's just leave it at that, yeah? Stop going over the Doctor's origins, bring back the mystery to them, and forge ahead with new stories. If 15 is hogtied to that awful unnecessary Born Great retconning, then I will find it difficult to keep going with this run. I don't mind you bringing back the fugitive Doctor, just don't mention it. Please don't mention it. All the awful retconning stopped that iteration of the Doctor from being interesting as well. How cool would it be to see the 15th Doctor and the fugitive Doctor doing a multi-Doctor special about anything other than the timeless child? I would definitely watch that. So yeah, to conclude, I don't want to be a Debbie Downer because God knows we've had some really bad Who, and I don't want to bite the hand that feeds me, but I also want to be honest with you guys, and I don't want to just bang on about an episode that I didn't think was as good as some of the episodes it's being compared to. I still think it was leagues ahead of the Chibnall era, and I enjoyed it probably about as much as I enjoyed last week's episode, but I still don't think we've quite reached the dizzying highs of some of New Who's earlier run. Judging on the strength of this episode than the last episode and how they have felt like a series rather than a special, I do still have a lot of faith that 15's series is going to be really, really good. And if we can get episodes as good as this throughout that series, then I think we'll be really happy. As it stands, we've only got a little bit of time with Donna and the Doctor, and I kind of wish they'd done something other than this. Oh boy, the comments are going to be rough on this one, aren't they? A big thank you to my full fat tier patron, Dr. Chike, and Nathan Shaw. If you'd like to donate money to my Patreon, you can find me at patreon.com/fullfatvideos. If you'd like to find me on Instagram, you can find me at full_fat_videos. And if you'd like to find me on Twitter, you can find me at fullfatvideos.